member of the existing airport authority shall serve as a member of the Board of Adjustment for the airport authority. So a review of the code was done at that time, and a new resolution was adopted that amended that, and that's the 19820, where you'll see section 7.01. They revised the language in that resolution. And the most important point I would draw your attention to is the Board of Adjustment consists of 5 members, 3 members appointed by the Lewis and Clark County Commission, and 2 members appointed by the Mayor of Helena with the consent of the Helena City Commission for 3-year terms, and they shall continue to serve until they're no longer on the board. So that's the long and sordid history of how we got to here. I guess I would ask both City Manager Burton and CEO Baltz if they have anything to add at this point. But it seems that we need to have a discussion and direction from all of you about how you'd like to proceed. There is currently not members existing on the Board of Adjustment for the Airport Authority. So we'd need to go through processes with each entity in order to membership.
And do I understand you right that it cannot be a current member of the airport board?
According to the revision that was done in 2011, yes.
That's correct.
So what's the difference between the two here? The adjustment?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I apologize. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna, I guess, 2 questions. One, do we really need this board, since there clearly hasn't been something that's come up that is prompted this question? And then 2, with long range planning occurring right now, the city county planning board turning into the new body. I mean, is this something we really need?
Thoughts, Mr. Mayor, you also have it. Thoughts as soon as you finish, we finish. Go ahead.
Well, I would defer to the city manager or CAO Baltz as to whether or not there's a need for the Board of Adjustment at this point. I know that there has been some discussion with the airport authority that I'm not privy to. So I won't speak to that. I would say, just based upon my research, the authority exists for this Board of Adjustment to be created. Whether or not it's necessary given current statute and code, I won't speak to that. And that's something we could certainly vet with each city attorney if necessary as well, I'm sure.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, almost like what Commissioner Dean was saying. So what's the difference between the two, And I'm looking at you, but I'm opening up the question to the body here, because I think we might just be creating another board to create, but I think the authority board would be able to work with the airport authority. So,
Mr. Chair, so I'm assuming you provided this for us out of MCA, is that accurate?
Actually, thank you, commissioners, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Logan has drawn your attention to the 113510 Airport Board of Adjustment. That's directly from City Code.
Oh, City Code. Okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
So it says an airport board of adjustments, and I guess they do reference MCA. The Board of Adjustment shall possess and exercise the following powers: to hear and decide appeals from any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the Joint City County Airport Board in the enforcement of this chapter, to hear and decide special exceptions to the provisions of this chapter upon which said Airport Board of Adjustment under such provisions may be required to pass, and to hear and decide specific variances. So it does seem like to have a purpose, right, that it's at some point was necessary, and at some point in the future maybe. So I hate to see us, well, it just seems like there may be a need at some point, whether that's now or down the road or whatever.
If I might, Mr. Chair, Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, although I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to speak to the statute. You know, the authority does exist to create this and as you stated, I'm not aware of a specific need at this stage, but there may be need in the future, and we assume since the question was asked, perhaps there's discussion happening outside of my purview.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So there was nothing that precipitated this. I mean, there was no need expressed by the airport board or anything of that nature.
I would defer to the city manager, CEO Baltz on that.
Have either of the managers seen that? An item is what we need to have it. We have, and I recall some kind of discussion about a noise ordinance that might need to be changed in order to put a particular kind of business there, isn't that right?
So if I could, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
This originated with an email message from the director of the airport authority, a man named Jeff Wadekamper, who back around Christmas time, it was over the holidays, sent Mr. Burton and myself an email message asking, what is the status of the airport board of adjustment? And we all scratched our head, and this great research was done. Although he's not with us today, my understanding is that he wanted to know the status because he had been approached by someone who was considering some type of development which might need the Board of Adjustment to weigh in regarding whether they could be located there under something called the noise influence area, which surrounds the airport. So that was the origination of why this came up, and we've been asking these questions. I don't know all the details about what was asked of Mr. Wadekamper, but he sent the message asking what is the status, and indicated that there might be some type of development that might need to interact with this Board of Adjustment regarding its jurisdiction.
Mr. Chair, just maybe there's additional documentation, but looking at the 1035 or 113510 says to hear and decide specific variances. Is there any clarity on what specific variances it refers to? And does the airport board, the current airport board, do they hear variances also? Is this supposed to be a subset? Do we know?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, again, what you have in front of you is my very preliminary research and what I have no historical knowledge on the board itself and how it operated in the past, and I would prefer to defer all those types of questions to the city attorney.
But do we know, if I might, just a clarification, does the board currently hear variances?
No. Yes, I guess maybe I haven't been clear, Commissioner. The Board of Adjustment for the Airport Authority does not currently exist. We don't have appointments made.
Oh, we don't have.
We have an airport authority.
Yes, but not the Board of Adjustment.
Right, I'm sorry, does the airport authority
That's what we
deal with variances currently?
No.
Okay. So there's a gap in hearing variances specific to that.
Correct.
That's like,
Does that make it a little bit clearer? Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I think, I don't know if we're looking for direction, but I think one thing that might be helpful is to find out if does this Board of Adjustments actually comply with the Land Use Planning Act? Because I'm starting to wonder, based on how that bill was developed, if it would currently comply with the way this is set up, even if we did want to go ahead and appoint people to meet whatever needs it has.
What act is that again?
The Land Use Planning Act,
Okay, got it.
yeah. So like our Board of Adjustments is well, essentially going away. And there's a whole new structure in which how these things will go about.
Commissioner.
Oh, sorry. No, straight.
Oh, I was gonna make a suggestion, but prior to that, probably I want to hear more information if there isn't.
I was just, Mr. Chairman, gonna make a suggestion.
Oh, well, gosh.
So go ahead.
Commissioner. I was just gonna suggest, Chair, Commissioners, that maybe we ask staff to look into it a little more, as well as the attorneys from county, city and county. And, you know, I guess the question is, do we need it? Why does it exist? It doesn't comply with current future law. What about the interaction with the FAA as well? So I think that Mr. Wadecamper, did you tell me that, Mr. Baltz, something about it might be needed if the FAA ever asks questions about things that were happening? I can't remember.
That must have been someone else.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know if the FAA is part of the equation as well, but it would be great to have a little more information before we either filled that board or decided to do away with it. Yeah. That's
And part of that due diligence, the questions asked, at least the information's in front of the governing bodies. We can visit with Mr. Wadecamper to see if there's a specific reason for the questions. Other than just noticing that the board isn't filled presently. I suspect, much like Mr. Baltz has said, that there has been discussions about future developments around the airport. But I think we can get further definition around that. I know the city commission is going to be engaging Mr. Wadecamper next week on some issues out at the airport. And prior to that, we can start inquiring to see if there's a written request by the airport for the commissions to take an action and why.
Does that seem reasonable to everybody? And put it on, make sure we have it now as a potential item for our next meeting in March.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? The direction would be to talk further with the manager of the airport and legal and see where we've set and come back with a more firm recommendation. And potentially at our next meeting at the meeting in March. Okay. All right.
All right.
Let's go on then to, if that's agreeable with everybody, let's go on to the next item. Commission discussion, reappointment application received from Gary Myers for the IT and escort. Is there anybody that has any knowledge of this that would be?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if I may, I believe that Deputy Clerk sent those materials on for Mr. Myers on. I without pulling up my email, I regret I don't know if they were received by the county side. I know that the city commission side got that. Okay. So I think this is just an opportunity for you all to discuss Mr. Myers' reapplication and his appointment. And then each entity would go to their various meetings for that official appointment.
Is this, does anybody know that the individuals had been an active member of the board?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And has served one term and is asking for their second term. And I know that's pretty much rule of thumb for the county. Is that also for the city?
It's up and it's makes, but I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
That's what I mean. The rest of the people.
And if I recall the procedure on that, we each go back and make our own votes.
Right.
To support that's the case. Correct. So I would assume that's where we would go from here with that, with the exception and bring it up at our respectful meetings and looks like that's pretty straightforward. Is there anything else that needs to come before the joint work session? And is there any public comment? Is there any public comment?
Mr. Chair, no.
Yes. Oh, I thought you had.
I did, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. There's been some discussion about the format of these meetings and the frequency. And I think if it's okay with City Manager and CAO Baltz, if we could have some direction or a bit of discussion from the two governing bodies about the meeting itself and how often throughout the year. I know that there had been some discussion about swapping out annually which entity managed the meeting and the agenda. So if I could request just on behalf of City Manager's office and Nadine and myself, if we could have a little discussion from the two bodies about how you all see the future of the meeting proceeding.
Any thoughts,
Well,
Mr. Mayor?
when I was approached by that, I said, I don't mind for half a year each, but a full year, I didn't agree with it. That's all.
So in other words, have the city.
We'll do half a year and the county. will do
Half a year
other half.
to manage the meeting. Is
Right.
what you're saying.
Right.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
and then that essentially happens now, but it's alternated.
Right. Is
But you're saying just for the first 6 months straight. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no real strong opinions on the management piece. I'm fine with the half switch. I would say one thing that may be useful is if we had some standing items. I do feel like there's enough going on with overlap between the city and the county, you know, joint infrastructure projects, things like that, that if we had, maybe if we could key in on one or two standing items and then add things as needed. I know that when we go a few months, it feels like maybe missed opportunities to get updates on things like, you know, for example, Custer Avenue, and other things that I think are of interest to our shared constituencies. So I would say if we could maybe move towards that, that would be my preference. Thanks.
Any other thoughts about that?
Mr. Chair, I agree with that too. Having conversations about the things that both of these touch on, transportation, infrastructure, et cetera, would be great.
But don't we all already do that?
Right.
Don't we do that already?
Well, I guess we don't believe we have standing items. Is that right?
It's all the
Cool.
occurs. I might offer, Mr. Chair, I think I understand where and would agree. I think where Commissioner Reed's coming from. I think that there are some of those, if we don't want to have a meeting, just have a meeting. There's no action or real discussion that we need to have. But I do know that, for example, the MPO is in the middle of the new RFP and gathering all these things and then coming to give us an update soon. So I think, and then public health always has pertinent updates. So I think maybe if we can just be a little bit more purposeful in when we do have a meeting, that we get timely updates on those various shared items. I mean, I'd hate to have a standing item and then not have any updates because it's a poor reason to have a meeting. But I'm totally fine with the half and half. And if I don't know if quarterly discussion is still out there, but I'm not opposed to that. I just don't want us to not. There are items of import that have more urgency. If we need to schedule a meeting, I think we should.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I don't have a huge, strong opinion either, and I like some what's been said. I think we should continue to meet and plan to meet. There are times when we've canceled because there's
nothing
to talk about, or even if we had standing items that there's no update at this time, that we could cancel a meeting or something. But I think to schedule them is important. I'd miss all of you guys.
Yeah, right.
And I think that over the years, it's been good overall for us to continue to talk and meet and continue to get to know each other, whatever it might be. The bodies are going to, individuals in these chairs are going to change, but the city and county trying to maintain a good working relationship is just really important. And so sometimes we may have less to talk about, and other times it may be pretty heavy. And I think to get us through those heavy times, to have good relationship and all that's really important. The one thing, so I'd like to keep meeting, but standing stuff, that's great. And if we have to cancel, we cancel. One thing I want to talk about, and Mr. Baltz has heard me talk about this multiple times, but I'm not usually the fussy one, but I do carry a little frustration about our system and the investment that we've all had into this system and the apprehension and the challenges it's been for our staff for sure. I watched it, I think, on the city side as well at times, where it's just it's not very user friendly. I'll just keep it simple that way. And so that's challenging. I like the 6 month thing at least, because it gives staff members more consistency on the network, if you will, versus every once in a while being in this room. We're not in here as often as the city is, and so probably less adapt to all the things we learn it or whatever. So part of it might be a training issue, but part of it is it sure doesn't seem like a user-friendly system to me. And with the investment that we've all made, it's frustrating to me. Both this and in 309, there's been challenges, pretty consistent challenges. And I don't know what we do about that, but it is our system. So maybe our staff folks can give us more information on that. But I know that unless you're using it all the time, it's probably pretty challenging, and there's updates and those kinds of things. I mean, I think that the chambers is challenging enough, and we're in there a lot. And sometimes there's updates and things, and once in a while we'll have challenges. But this room and 309 seem to have consistent challenges, and that frustrates me after we've spent significant dollars to try and update it. And now 2 years on, still people feel like, God, I want to go ahead and work on that have a meeting in that room because it frustrates me. And that only part of that is the not using it all the time. It should be a more user-friendly system, I think. So I think we set our people up sometimes, and it's frustrating to me. So I'll just leave it at that. But I don't know if anybody else shares that frustration.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that was one of the reasons I brought it up to everyone, was we use it every other month. Sometimes if we have no meetings, we don't use it for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Was so that we would have consistency. We would be in here at 6 months right in a row. So that way, I think we would be exposed to more when the changes occur, and maybe we'd finally get it through our heads. Because I think a lot of it is we don't use it. And it goes back to if you don't use it, you lose it.
There you go. Mr. Chairman, a suggestion based upon the meeting. I think, as you all agree, for the city and the county to get together on a regular basis is a big deal. It should happen more around the state of Montana than it does, but at least it's happening here. And maybe we can approach the standing item discussion where the mayor and the city commission can consider what they would want and let me know. County commission could consider what they want and let Roger know, and we could get together and try to formulate an agenda that has standing items on it. And those will come and go depending upon the issues as well, especially when we conclude a major project or something along that line. And then I'm hearing the commission say that 6 months the county runs the meeting, 6 months the city runs the meeting, and that everybody's okay with that approach. And then we'll keep our monthly meeting, but we'll just staff it differently. Does that work?
Sounds like that's a consensus.
Mr. Chair, just thank you, City Manager. That's good clarification for all of us. What I would ask the two bodies to discuss briefly is the procedure and the operation of the meetings themselves, just for food for thought. The city runs our meetings quite differently than the county does as far as the tech component. We use a different version of Zoom than the county does currently. So just throwing it out there for your consideration, they will look probably much different depending on which entity is running it at that time of the year. So it's not for me to say if that matters or not. It's just something for you all to consider. And then the other question I would have is, if that is the will of both commissions, how soon would you like to proceed with this plan of the 6 months, and who is taking over?
Start next month.
Mr. Chair. If I might, if we could maybe have the discussion, at least with our commission, on an admin meeting and provide answers to all of this at once, which I would suggest would mean either a month or two before it all kicks in.
Sure.
Then if the county's able to do that as well, then we can aim to have agreement and go forward.
Okay.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is from a staff perspective, and I believe Nadine's indicated, you know, I want this to be a consistent product for you all, but also for the public too, for expectations. So it's just something to get clear direction from you all on.
Since both of us have terms that begin and ends in January, maybe we should do a January through June and a July through December break, if that wouldn't be. Does that sound like it would work?
I don't have a problem with that.
And let's just go ahead, like, would it be agreeable if we just said the city is going to do it for January through June, and the county's going to do it through July through December?
No problem here.
Does that sound reasonable? And we proceeded on that, and then as far as the standing items, we can work through that over the next month until our next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just one last thing. Past practice in my years here have been that there's been a desire to have the meetings at 4 o'clock, and if possible, limit the meeting to 1 hour. Is that still the desire of the election?
It's always been that way, yeah. At least for the county know how to cut things off. 5 o'clock, boom, they're done. Yeah, that is it. Administrator Baltz.
Mr. Chair, one thing that I would just throw out, I don't know if there's gonna be any interest in this, but I think one thing that I've observed over the last few years is that we seem to, at least from the city side, we get a lot better and more robust public comment when we have, for example, our regular meetings are at 6 p.m. And I know our admin meetings compared to our regular meetings, we always have more active public participation in regular meetings just because it's after people are off. I don't know if 5 o'clock is any interest to anyone, but I do think that we would probably get more interest from the public if people had a chance to make it when they weren't at work. You can say no, because I know you all meet another time, but I think that's something that I
It's
hear a
always
lot.
been guided by the public. They haven't frowned on this yet. So let's continue until the public frowns on it.
I don't have a strong opinion about it.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I wanted to indicate that in May of every year, we typically have a 2-hour meeting for joint sessions so that we can hear all of the joint budgets. And so I just wanted to make a note that we've started that meeting early so that we can continue to wrap up by 5. So if that's still okay with the group, I think we do still need the 2 hours for that particular meeting once a year.
Under what I was just suggesting earlier, that would be under direction of the city. And does anybody have a problem with continuing with that May meeting starting in 3 probably and going till 5?
Personally, I would prefer 4 to 6, but I mean, I can. No one from the public is going to be participating at 3 o'clock. Because I think why we never have any public participation during those ones.
All these things should have been on the agenda.
Okay.
I think all of this should have been on the agenda.
Yeah.
Because this is public comment now. You're not a public people.
Yeah. All right. All right, do we need to make it? Are we okay with where we're headed? I think I hear where.
If we want to have, Mr. Chair, if we want to have a greater discussion about this particular thing, we can put it on the future agenda.
Okay. All right. Have it on the March agenda.
I'm open to whatever.
That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Anything else? Then I'll ask again for public comment. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? There being none, we're.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Commissioner Reed, I tried, man, but these guys just brought up all kinds